Good afternoon everyone, it's Linda here from Banjo's Bead House with our weekly Facebook Live video. And yes, you may notice my hair is flying around a little bit. It is about 36 degrees outside and I had to kill the air conditioning because it's making a really loud rattling sound that was not conducive for recording a video. So I have a little fan on, so I do apologize if you're getting the noise of that, but it's trying to help me stay a little cool during this crazy summer-like weather in autumn. All I can say at this point is bring on winter. Okay, so this week is a customer request. I had a customer who wanted to know how to use the clot ends and get a crimp into them and finish everything off. And I've had some other customers who've brought in a lot of repairs using hidden endings when they're doing lariats and all sorts of different pieces. And I've done a lot of custom classes on this of late, so I thought I'd share with you guys some tips and tricks on how to do that sort of work. So I'm going to tip you guys down and we'll go have some fun. So this is a sample piece that we mocked up today. The idea of this, it does have a split bottom and then you'll put your clasp at the back. We've just used wire guards to separate anything. So it's two completely separate pieces of jewelry wire that we're using. I've got some crimps and I've got some folding culottes. I've also got a magnet and some jump rings to finish everything off. So I'm just going to push them to the side because this is what I need right now. And then I'm just grabbing, a pair of chain nose pliers, and I have my cutters to trim stuff off with as well. So whilst the design is to have these guys at the ending, we want to hide the crimp, and with the hole that size, I believe the crimp is going to flow into it, so we're going to test. If not, we will set the crimp up on this side. I've done this in the past where we've done one and threaded all the way back through and hidden under a larger hole bead. It just depends on what you're working with and how long a piece of wire you want to bury. I've had other people bury them under bead caps. It really just does vary on your design. But to test this, I am just going to thread this through, and he just gets stopped. So I am going to crimp him off just there. So he's not completely hidden, but he is almost completely hidden. This is as opposed to, I've seen designs where people will just put a crimp straight there and trim straight there after the crimp. The problem with that is if you've ever worn jewelry where it's got a little irritation or it's catching on everything, that's because the nylon coating on this wire has come away and you're dealing with the twists of wire coming undone. And when that happens, that's when you get little irritation burrs on the back of your neck or things start catching on clothing. So it's always best to bury your wire inside of something so that if it does start to unfurl, it's got somewhere for that unfurl to go that is not going to cause an irritation. So with this, I'm just altering the design a little bit by having that seed bead come into a loop. I am bending that wire inside my fingers because I'd like it to sit like that, which is going to take a little bit of work. And I'm going to slide that crimp back over. So we will get that bead set back up how we like it. Move our everything else down, and yet I've got to try and tug equally, otherwise it doesn't sit centered, which won't make a huge difference. I could have and probably should have gone and picked up a drop bead. Didn't think about it, but you kind of want to turn a seed bead here into the effect of a little drop. So we've got him sitting there, and I'm just going to smush that crimp down. So that's now my ending for that. So this little tail of wire can then disappear into that bead, and if it does unfurl, it's all hidden. So it's not completely hidden because you do have, sorry I keep going off screen, you do have a little bit of this crimp showing, but it's a very tiny detail. If you were concerned about it, you could have moved down to put another one there just as a sitting, or another seed bead to balance it. That's two things that you can consider yourself. Okay, so I'm just going to slide that up, and so we have that nice little finished end off as compared to that one where it's just hanging out still. So we will finish this off the same way, and this is a good thing to do before you deal with your ends up here. So we're just taking those two off. We are picking up our seed bead. Now I purposely picked up the gunmetal seed beads with this because it blended in a little bit more than one of the antique silvers. So if you are trying to do this, whoops, hidden kind of effect, you do want to pick it up so that you can hide things as best as possible. Okay, so sliding that on. So again, you'll notice I'm skipping that bead as I'm threading back through. That's because that's acting as my little loop or stopper. Pulling that down a little bit. Getting my crimp on. Which is sometimes easier than at other times. And as I'm working my way there, I'm just setting that bead up between my fingers, squeezing that wire and pushing the rest of that down with my thumb here to get that as locked in as close as I can. And just squeeze that crimp off. So just a trusty pair of chain nose pliers, squeezed off, and that is the two ends all done for my design. So our bottom drop, when I pull those wires evenly, is all done. Oops, he's not quite sitting straight. So that's the bottom half of our necklace with this dangle detail already done. And we're going to flip to the other end now, which is where we're going to use the folding culotte crimps. So just trying to get this untwisted. So I'm just going to put that side to that and take off this bead stopper. You can see Mum loves her bead stoppers. So if you've never worked with one before, in classes with kids we'll often call these Mickey Mouse because it kind of looks like Mickey. You just squeeze, drop on, and that will stop all of your beads from sliding off while you're working. So if you are in the middle of stringing or you need to cut your wire, it's a great little tool for that. Great way if you need to cut the wire off and test the length on when you want to try it on, because it's often easier just to have a bead stopper behind your neck than it is something else, like the whole spool of wire. Sorry, it's a little hot. So this is a folding culotte crimp, which I'm using in place of a wire guardian. These are handy if you've only got a really short piece of wire left and you don't want to bend over. Working with seed beads like this size, which is size 8s, I could have used a wire guardian and threaded my wire back through. A lot of the work I've done of late, we've been using the 11s, and when you try and thread that second wire back through, it actually overfills the whole in a way that it stiffens it up and you lose this lovely fluidity, and it becomes very noticeable where your ending is. So in order to avoid that, we don't put a wire back through. So you instead are going to thread through the base of this and through the base, and you are going to slide it down. With this, when I close this, if I close right up against that, it's actually going to push its way down. So I need to be really careful where I put my crimp in this design so that I do allow a little bit of room, because I don't want to over tighten this. So things to take into consideration. So you can see I've got this in a little bit of a semicircle shape. We are just going to pick up our crimp if he actually wants to work. So there we go. So we've got our crimp on. I've opened up my culotte quite wide, and I'm just pulling that out so that I can grab my chain nose pliers, and I'm just going to pull that through. Now the depth here of the chain nose pliers is going to give me the little gap that I need. If not, I would say shove a thumbnail in there, because that will give you the gap. But I know from how my pliers are interacting with this culotte, that there is enough of a gap. So I can just hold this squeeze, give it a really big tight squeeze, come back here and just trim, which is often the trickier part, getting your plier into the culotte and being able to see where you are cutting. So cut your wire away. I have left a tiny little tail, and you simply fold that up. And we will come back and add a jump ring on, but we need to do the other side first. So again, removing the bead stopper, I am opening up our folding culotte. Now the reason why I like these culottes over the traditional one which just have a loop is the two loops here both have holes in them ready for jump rings. So rather than one side, so on the traditional ones it's a loop here and nothing on this side. You fold it shut and there's nothing to hold this side to it. With the jump ring going through both of these, it actually holds the entire piece together. So that's why I prefer these ones to the traditional. And I have less issues with these ones breaking than I do the traditional ones, which often get used with pearls. And that's the part that breaks. And when that happens and it's a fully knotted piece on silk, you're restringing the entire thing, which is never fun. And I dropped that crimp, so we're just going to get that crimp back out. So, oops, this one does not want to behave. So crimp down, sliding down, and we just need to now make sure, no, that crimp did not stick. So pushing everything else down, grabbing our misbehaving crimp. And that's why you want to give your crimps a really big smush. So you can see I've got a very tight grip, and now he's not going anywhere. And I probably actually overdid that. No, I've got just enough. So we're going to cut. Oops, get rid of our waste. Fold him together. Yeah, that side is a little tighter than the other one, so it has tightened this side up. So as I said, I forgot to put the curl in it, and that's what happens when you do that. But it's actually not going to interfere too badly with this piece because there's not a huge amount of weight and everything still has room to move. So to finish off, I am just grabbing my trusty bent nose pliers, getting these guys out of the way, and we're just going to add our clasp onto here. So we're going to grab one of our jump rings, and of course the steel ones always come closed, so you've got to try and find your opening. So just twist, and you just want to open it enough just to be able to get your clasp and your connecting points on. And you're always twisting your arms away from each other. You're never pulling this way because you'll distort your ring shape. So we're just threading through both of those loops, twisting closed, grabbing our other jump ring. I think the opening's at the top there. We'll soon find out. Yep. Going through our magnet again, and through both of our loops again. And just like that, we've done our folding culotte close finish, which is this little appearance. So instead of the wire guard, where again you'll have your crimp exposed and your little horseshoe and then your jump ring, you've just got this little ball effect with loops that you then connect your jump ring through. And we did our slightly hidden version down the end here, so unless you're looking very closely you won't see the crimp in that design, but it gives you a lovely fun dangly tassel-y kind of necklace, just using two pieces of jewelry wire. The ends are just offset by one length, but yeah, it's a fun little project. Great way to use up some seed beads, some odd focals, or you know, some glass, because you could do a fancy focal here and simples coming out here with like even a check dagger bead. But yeah, it's a fun one to have some play around time with some beads that you've got left over in your stash, or to design from scratch. So that is it for me for this week. As always, if there's something you'd like to see demonstrated, or me using, demoing, playing around with, just drop me a line and I will see how I can incorporate it into a live project for you. We are dropping our April box, which should go live tomorrow. The newsletter probably will go out on Monday because I'm just a bit behind in working on a few other things for the newsletter, but keep an eye out for that going live tomorrow. The March one's sold out in 3 days, so I'm hopefully the April one will as well. We do have a limitation on the number for April as well. A couple of the delicate colors are becoming harder to get at the moment. There is some shortages, so I'm working my way around those as best I can. But yeah, so it will go live tomorrow. Our Easter pastel box, I think there's 2 left. That's the box that Paula will be using in about a month's time for her Easter Pastels on the fly demonstration. So yeah, there's lots of fun things going on. There is still some spaces in all of the classes we have listed with Paula and with Meg. The champagne class, I know there's been a couple of questions on the caps in that design. Paula has some really beautiful vintage champagne caps you could use in the design, but she's also starting to play around with some crystals that we can use in that design as well. So I'm hoping to have some more photos and things I can share with you guys soon. So for those of you who are interested in that class, stay tuned. But that's it for me for this week. Stay safe in this crazy weather. Stay creative, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.